All right. Good evening, early evening, Corona Days Professional Development Group. It's me, Danette Edwards. I am here this evening with Shara Ruffin. I'm going to give you guys a moment or two to come into the room this evening. Shara is going to share with us her pandemic story. I'm just going to pull up the group so I could see, because I can't see who's in the room or anything like that. But I know that we are live. So good evening. And I'm going to go. Oh, okay. You guys are in here. Okay. I just don't see you on StreamYard. Okay. That's why I go to Facebook to confirm. All right. Okay. We are ready. I am glad that Shara is here. I met her maybe 2 or 3 months ago, and I wanted to have her in the room like immediately the first day we spoke. So I'm glad that she's here with us. So let me give you a little information about Shara and what she's going to talk with us today about. Shara is going to share her pandemic story. Again, this is Shara Ruffin. She's going to share with us her experiences and lessons learned during the COVID-19 pandemic related to mental health advocacy, resilience, hope, and self-discovery. She's also going to share the journey of finding herself and cultivating her purpose during the pandemic. A little about Shara. Shara is an independently licensed clinical social worker and psychotherapist from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. She holds a bachelor's degree from Lock Haven University and a master's from Howard University School of Social Work. She provides therapeutic support to enhance the lives of others through her specializations in grief and loss, healthcare, family trauma, veteran behavioral health, mindfulness meditation, and anxiety. Shara is a board-certified mental health provider. She is a mother to 3 children and loves to cook homemade meals for her family. Shara also has a number of certifications I see here or licenses. I see LCSW, ACSW, C-SWHC, BC-TMH, and I know nothing about those, but I know that they are very important. I lost Shara. Here, she's coming back. She's coming back. All right, she's back. All right. So you got the great intro. You okay, Shara?
Yeah. I was like, for some reason I got kicked out, so I have no idea.
Yeah, I don't know what happened. I was like, what happened? Okay. Yeah. All right. So I gave you the greatest intro. So I'm going to go ahead and remove myself from the screen if I can figure out.
No problem. All right. So hi everybody. I am here to pandemic story will follow you. Last year was a pretty rough year for me. March of 2020, I was in a full contract as a social worker at a long-term care facility, working with people that had long cruises. Study for my board exams. I'm a licensed clinical social worker now. The time I was getting ready to take my exam points in November of 2020. So fast forward in March, and then that contract ends.
Shara, can you hear me?
Am I going to work another contract job? Going home with my son, had to didn't have a home, and I decided part of the reason why I decided to stay home. And at the time, I just felt it would be better for me to stay home. I had a son to take care of.
Hi guys, I think we are having some connectivity issues with Shara. Let me add her back. Shara, I think we're having some connectivity issues.
Okay, let me check my side again.
Give me all right. Guys, thank you for being patient. You know how we do here. Thank you all for being patient. While I have you here, I'm going to remind you that I posted up in the group a form that I'd like everyone to complete, a contact form, which allows me to get some information from you so that I can share with you some future, some things that are going to be happening. Please complete that Google form. I've incentivized completion of that Google form. So if you complete the form on February 21st, when I give my live, I'm going to pull four of the names of the people who completed the form, and I am going to award them Amazon gift certificates if they are in the US or somewhere where they can use an Amazon gift certificate. If not, I'll give that cash equivalent to them. So if you have not completed that form, go ahead and do so, please. I'm not sure, guys. Shara's having some connectivity issues, so please bear with us for a couple minutes, and let's see if we could get her back in the screen, back up here. Yeah. What else? Okay. What else do I have? Oh, you know that on my birthday, February 17th, Wednesday, and I think we'll go at 7 p.m. I'm going to be interviewed here in the group. So this will be the first time that I'm actually going to share my career journey. I did the random number generator and selected 3 names. The first was Rhonda. The second was Janae. And the third was Mildred. Are you back? Let me see.
Yeah, I'm back. I reset my router.
Oh, she had to, okay. It's all right. Don't worry. We're good. I'm telling them something and then we can begin. And so I'll be interviewed February 17th, guys. I let the person selected, who was Rhonda, decide what she wanted to do, if she wanted me to prepare a presentation about my career journey or if she wants to interview me. And she wants to interview me. Now, I'm going to give y'all full disclosure. You guys know that I selected the numbers randomly. Because I did it here in the group so you could see they were random. So full disclosure, Rhonda and I have been friends since we were 10 years old. She's one of my closest friends and definitely one of the longest friendships that I've had, although I have quite a few long friendships. So she is going to interview me. She decided that she wanted to ask me questions. So I'm not preparing anything for you. The only thing I will prepare, she asked me to prepare some picture slideshow. And she told me exactly what picture she wants to see. So that we will be doing that. And Shara, you ready?
I am ready. I am ready.
All right. I'm going to go ahead and do your whole bio again so that.
I'm so sorry.
No, it's okay. We're good. This is CDPD. We regular people, regular folks, you know. I'm going to go ahead and do your whole bio again so that if we want to edit this and you use this for something else, you can. All right. All right, guys, bear with us. Let me tell you about Shara. Today we have the honor of hosting Shara Ruffin. She's going to talk to us today about her pandemic story. Today, Shara is going to share her experiences and lessons learned during the COVID-19 pandemic related to mental health. Mental health advocacy, resilience, hope, and self-discovery. Shara is also going to share the journey of finding herself and cultivating her purpose during the pandemic. A little about Shara. Shara is an independently licensed clinical social worker and psychotherapist from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. She holds a bachelor's degree from Lock Haven University and a master's degree from Howard University School of Social Work. She provides therapeutic support to enhance the lives of others through her specializations in grief and loss, healthcare, family trauma, veteran behavioral health, mindfulness meditation, and anxiety. Shara is also a board-certified mental health provider. She is a mother to 3 children and loves to cook homemade meals for her family. In addition to all of this, and some of this I said, I see a lot of letters behind Shara's name. Okay. So I know licensed clinical social worker. I don't know the rest, but I will call them out because many of you do. So she has as an LCSW, she's an ACSW, she is a C-SWHC and a BC-TMH. All right. And I love it. Okay. I don't know what they are, but I know they are meaningful and important, and they further legitimize everything that Shara is going to share with us today here. So, oh, did we lose you again, Shara?
I hope not. I'm still here. I can hear you and
Okay,
everything.
I see you. Okay, let me remove myself. Guys, I'm going to turn it over. Let me remove
Okay.
myself.
All right. I'm still here. Okay. Hi, everybody. Sorry, I'm in Delaware, so there's a weak signal. I kind of hotspotted my phone. But anyway, we're going to keep going. So I was giving you guys some of my pandemic story, and that story starts March of last year. I had ended my job. I was a contract a social worker at a licensed structure facility. I did that in North Philadelphia. I live in West Philly, by the way. I'm in Pennsylvania. So I did that job till the end of the month, and my contract was ending. So I had a choice of either staying in that facility and working, or staying home with my son, because at the time Philadelphia was locking down. I think it probably like 29, 28, I don't remember. But I was like, you know what? This job is ending, so I'm going to go ahead and stay home for my son, because this might be temporary. I really didn't know much about the virus at that time. I didn't know. So I stayed home with my son to homeschool him. He was in kindergarten at the time, and from there, I just decided to work on my LCSW license. So for licensed clinical social work, you have to go from your master's degree to getting supervision for 2 years and then sit for your exam. It took me 10 years, but that's another story for another day. But nonetheless, I had failed that exam November 2019. So during this time of me working between November 2019 and March 2020, my whole focus had been, I have to take this exam again so I can pass it, so I can move into private practice, so I can make more money, so I can provide for my son. I have a 6-year-old. Now, mind you, in the presentation, Danette said I have 3 children. I'm now engaged, so I included my 2 stepdaughters, so to clear that up. So moving forward, at the end of March, I'm at home taking care of my son. I'm like, oh, this is going to be temporary. Money starts dwindling down. Eventually, by April, May, I'm in the negative bank account. Taxes that I received gone. Stimulus that I received gone, because most of that I went to bills, trying to keep my house afloat. Could barely feed my son. I ended up having to get on food stamps, and advocate for me getting medical insurance, because as an independent contractor, you don't have insurance. It had been a year from my last traditional full-time job where I had insurance. So I am pretty much going through the motions, because I thought this was going to be a temporary thing. Yeah, I could go out, and some people are like, why don't you go out and work? I could, but one, I'm scared of the virus, not knowing what it is, what's going on, how it's transmitted. Two, I had my son at home. I didn't want to go out and work and have to worry about, you know, engaging in work that would make me vulnerable to this virus that's going around. So April, May comes along. I start getting headaches. Now, naturally, I have migraines. I always get migraines, but I was getting migraines every day for 3 months straight. These headaches were very debilitating. Um, I would have to take up to 4 or 5 Excedrin a day to knock them out. I couldn't go to the doctor. I didn't have any insurance at the time. I didn't get insurance until June, and that's when I also got a food assistance, which I kind of, with my pride, I kind of fought against. But my son needed to eat, so I said, I got to do what I got to do. So I ended up getting on food assistance, but it took about a good month getting insurance. And then I also had to find a psychiatrist, because I was diagnosed with ADHD back in March of 2020. I had that generalized anxiety, but I needed to get the ADHD diagnosis, because to find out that was one of the things that were triggering me during my last time I took my 4-hour board exam. So again, going back to the summer, riots started to hit. In West Philadelphia, there's a lot of inner city violence that happened. It pretty much increased by tenfold when the riots started happening. I couldn't tell if it was fireworks or shooting. Most of the time it was shooting. I could hear ATM machines exploding, people exploding ATM machines at night. I could barely sleep. Um, I mostly got really depressed, because I'm thinking originally, man, I was supposed to pass this exam. I was supposed to take it again in March, because it gives you 90 days from the time November that I took it, up November 2019 to March 2020. I'm like, I'm going to take this exam and passed it. But all these things happened, and pandemic kind of kept pushing the exam back. I'm getting discouraged. I'm losing patience. My anxiety is just out of just all over the place. I'm not eating well. I'm not sleeping well. Mind you, I still have to get through 6 hours of my son's homeschool. He's still in kindergarten, having to do his homework. My partner's children are in the home, um, having to make sure they're eating breakfast, lunch, dinner. Um, Between headaches and migraines, they were so debilitating that I would have to lay down. Most of that was because of my own anxiety and stress related to the pandemic. Alerts going off on my phone every couple of hours. Alerts are going off. Okay, there's been a robbery here, or there's been an explosion of ATM here, and I just was in a very deep, dark, depressed state because my plans had kind of went out the window, not knowing what to do. My son, of course, he didn't know what was going on. He got a little scared of hearing explosions at night, but he slept for the most part pretty well. Me, I was depressed. I have all these um, degrees and things that I want to do, but I can't do them. I'm at home. I have having to choose either to stay home with my son and homeschool him because no one else can do it. My parents can do it, and they're not good with technology or work, and I chose that. So it was a painful couple of months. Um, and to put that in retrospective, once I actually got on medication for my ADHD and anxiety, that wasn't until August or September. And I started studying for my exam again. I started exercising with a therapist because that's the other piece. I didn't have a therapist. Um, the therapist I did have, um, I couldn't pay her anymore. So I ended up getting a therapist through my insurance, which was helpful because I was able to kind of get back to a space that I needed to be in order to pass the exam, which was a struggle because I would, between all of that was going on with the riots and me not sleeping well, eating well, my anxiety is running high, my negative, sorry, my negative bank account, I'm spiraling. I can't study like that. It took me a good 4 or 5 months before I could even study again. I started studying at the end of September, going into November, and I took the exam and I did pass it. But what it took for me to get to that point of passing it was a lot of work. Um, it was it was on the day before we found out that who was going to be president. It was 5 hours, about a block or so from the convention center, 2 blocks or so, um, and there were bomb threats at the time when I took it on November 6th, but I did pass it. And I sat there and cried when I did pass it because of all the things that it took me to get to that place. Now, people ask me, why is this exam so important? It took me 10 years again to get to the LCSW. It had been 10 years since I went to Howard University, 7 years since my master level license. Um, from the time that I graduated with my master's in 2010 to November 6th, 2020, a lot had happened in that time. I had um, took my master level exam twice um, because I failed it the first time, took it again, and passed it the second time. I have a lot of testing anxiety, not good with standardized tests. That was between 2011 and 2013. Then after that, I had a long-term relationship, that 7-year relationship that broke off. I was engaged um, for 7 years, and that relationship was done. A year and a half, 2 years later, I meet my ex-husband. I was living in Alexandria, Virginia at the time. I then we started dating, and for about a couple months, found out I was pregnant with my firstborn daughter. He's about to go off to Afghanistan, so it happened pretty fast in terms of our relationship. He's going to Kabul, Afghanistan. He's like, "Oh, you're pregnant? Well, I gotta go. I gotta first leave Fort Belvoir and go to Fort Campbell, which is between Tennessee and Kentucky." And I'm still in Virginia. And I say, "Well, I'm pregnant. I'm going to keep the baby." And he's like, "Well, you're going to keep it. That's fine. But just to let you know, I'll support you anyway. I can, but I got to go." At the time, my ex-husband was in 26, 27 years. And this is the first time he ever been in combat zone. About 7 months later, I miscarried. I had a stillborn baby girl named Asia. I gave birth to her at 7 months. At the time, I didn't know that there was any issues. She had been moving regularly, and one day I woke up in a pool of blood, um, and went to the hospital, and they said that she had been deprived of oxygen from her umbilical cord, and she passed inside me, and I gave birth to her, which was very traumatic. Went through a lot of therapy for that at the time. But my ex-husband, he came home, and well, let me backtrack. I told him that night that I miscarried, and it was devastating for him because he couldn't come home. So if you can imagine, your girlfriend at the time telling you this, you're looking forward to this child that you're supposed to have together when you come back and stateside, and it didn't happen. So he comes back. This is between, I want to say, summer 2013. I come home to Philly. We just decide we're going to work toward a relationship and try to build something. The engagement, our actual marriage, 2014, and the birth of our son happened really, really fast. My son was born one out of my grief. My ex-husband, he wanted a baby too. At the time, I didn't give myself enough time to heal. And after that, my ex-husband says, I'm going to go back overseas again after my son is born. He's now 7 years old and pretty healthy. We find out that Jaden is his name, that he has some abnormal kidney issues. And my ex-husband, he stays away from me. So there are definitely pieces of the story I'm not telling you, but he stays away from me at the time. During our marriage, our engagement, we were still apart. There were times where we'd come together, fly to each other, and then there were times where we'd be apart. But it was very turbulent in our marriage because we were both still grieving our daughter. We had this newborn child that was medically compromised. We were told that he was going to have surgery at 6 months to repair one of his valves that had blockage, which was scary because my ex-husband came up for the surgery. However, I had to go through the process of taking care of Jaden whenever he needed to go to the hospital while working a full-time job, mind you, as a therapist at an outpatient facility, having to deal with all of this while working full-time, trying to build a career stateside while my ex-husband was nowhere to be found, which was pretty hard. So after that, our relationship just started to deteriorate. My ex-husband, he really had an issue with grief. And one day he just said, I don't want to do this anymore. I want us to get a divorce. I fought it for a long time because I wanted us to work. I was also going through a lot of postpartum, drowning my own depression and grief. To give you a good example of that, I would be, working, be Shara the therapist with a mask on 1 minute, and then I happen to, deal with other people's problems. That was easy for me to do that, to detach from my work, because when 6 o'clock came in the afternoon, my life was pretty much hell. Having to move in with my mom for a little bit, having to deal with my own untreated mental health issues, having a broken marriage, a husband that's not there to take care of his child, a husband that's not there to help me. So I'm doing all of this while trying to build something for my career, for my son, dealing with single motherhood, even though I'm still married, and fighting for a marriage that was no longer viable. This is between 2014 and 2016 that I fought for this marriage that was non-existent. To find out after the marriage that my ex-husband had a baby during the marriage, which is why he was pushing for divorce in the first place. I found out through a Facebook email from the lady who had a baby during our marriage saying, hey, I just wanted my daughter to meet her siblings. And I said, who are you? And she's like, oh, I'm such and such. And she's like, do you know such and such? I'm like, yeah, that's my ex-husband. Well, we just had a baby. So this is once the divorce was finalized, it was almost a year that she's coming out and telling me this by Facebook, and find out the reason why was because she was trying to seek child support And I gave her all the information she needed. We talked for about 4 or 5 hours. It wasn't a bad conversation because it let me know that there were other things going on in the marriage that he wasn't telling me, and that he had made some mistakes on his part and didn't want me to find out. So the divorce finalized in March 2016. From 2016 to 2018, 2019, I started focusing more on my career, getting my clinical hours while taking care of my son, and trying to forge a life for myself. And that was hard. By 2018, I started really talking more about my military story. I'm a military brat. My father was in the military. So that community means a lot to me, and wanting to talk more about the issues that community faces, the stigma, the mental health issues, was also a lot, in talking about the grief. So each of my specializations are actually areas that I have personal experience in, whether it's grief, whether it's military counseling, whether it's mindfulness meditation. Those things I practice with my patients at my last job, as well as practicing those skill sets with myself, and also going to therapy, which I still do. And I share this with you because getting that license when I got it was a 10-year journey of me going through life stressors. A lot of my colleagues had got their license after their master's, and they moved on. Me, I was, being a wife, being a mom, being a caretaker. Life had put me in so many different directions. And that was hard. But the lesson that I learned out of that was life is going to give you lemons. You just have to make lemonade with them. Wasn't easy to hear at the, this, it's an old saying, but it wasn't easy to say at the time, going through those motions, going through grief, symbolically losing things, and trying to just keep pushing through. After my divorce and trying to forge a career, which I did, it wasn't easy because I was still fighting with my anger. My now fiance, he had to deal with a lot of that being an emotional punching bag for me, raising my son, helping me raise him while I'm still grieving the loss of my marriage and trying to find a way to move forward. I eventually did, but it wasn't easy. Getting through my licensure process to be able to do private practice and share those stories, because I'm not only a psychotherapist, but I'm also an advocate because I have those experiences of dealing with stigma. I grew up in a low income neighborhood in West Philadelphia from a poor school district, became the first generation college graduate, and also first generation master's degree holder in my family. No one else has any degrees. I was born to two teenage parents that taught me a lot about education, and they wanted me to see a way out. I'm the oldest of 5 children. My dad was in the Navy for many years, so he moved around a lot, with and without me. So that cultivated a lot of my experience when it came to connecting to the military. Of course, it also had a lot to do with some of my unfinished business with my dad when it came to men. And I realized that later on in life, or probably like 2 years ago, me and my dad had a good conversation about some of those dysfunctional family patterns, because my ex-fiance was military, he's in the Marine Corps. My ex-husband was in the Army, and there's a connection. They were both emotionally disconnected men. And it took me almost 15, 16 years for me to talk to my father and say, hey, what were you like when you were 19 years old, having to care for children? Were you really ready to be a parent? And I came to my dad that way because me and him we never will have a really close relationship. But however, I wanted to understand him as a parent myself, to know what he was like during that time. My dad was very physically and emotionally abusive to my mother, as he was to me, and my other siblings. I witnessed a lot of trauma, and a lot of things I wish I didn't see, but I did. And it taught me a lot of dysfunctional patterns about staying in relationships that were no longer viable way past their expiration. So me and my father, we had a conversation, and I told my dad, after letting him talk about his childhood and family upbringing, and what it was like to care for me and my siblings being so young, because I wanted to understand him, but I wanted to understand myself. And I wanted to work on healing, um, because I was looking for something in those men that had nothing to do with them and very much had to do with myself, and my disconnection to my own father. My dad is very emotionally connected. He was a great provider financially, but when it came to providing that emotional care, that connection, that type of love, I didn't get it. So I went looking for it. However, consciously thinking that I had gotten past all that stuff and was really, I was running from it, um, and connecting back to it in the same, through those relationships. And currently, the man that I'm engaged to now is very much emotionally connected, um, and very much healthy for me. But it also took me a while to accept that, because again, going back to what I thought I deserved was somebody who was emotionally disconnected, like my father. So there's that pattern again that I had to learn how to break. Um, so me and my dad had a 9 hour conversation to find out there was a trauma that he experienced, which kind of fueled his anger as a young man, fueled his rage, and his his child rearing, nonetheless. So I'm giving you various pieces here to kind of give you guys a picture of where I've been. But that's pretty much been my journey, rediscovering who I am, talking to my parents, healing connections that I needed to heal, and telling my story, beyond just being a therapist, but letting people see me, and connect to me, telling stories about mental health and advocating for people that struggle, because I know what that it's like to be on the other side of the chair, to have a therapist, to be vulnerable, to try to connect, to feel alone. I've been there. So, and those are the things that I tend to hold on to when I'm trying to build a therapeutic relationship with a client, or a patient. So really connect with them on that level of walking through life experiences, which I think we all go through. So that's my story. Don't know what questions you guys have. Um, yeah, that's where I'm at. So, Danette, I think I'm good here.
I can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you just fine.
All right. Thank you, Shara. I I know some more of that story.
Hmm.
But I'm going to I don't usually ask questions, but I'm going to specifically ask you to share some of the amazingly promising and good things that have come into fruition for you professionally over the last few months.
Last few months. Let's see, where
Mm-hmm.
should I start? Besides my
Yeah.
licensure,
Mm-hmm.
um, I met Danette through LinkedIn, and we connected over me sharing pieces of that pandemic story that I share with you guys. But out of being on LinkedIn and showing up, doing videos, especially with my little boy, I've done that for 2 years. I was a burnt out social worker, really looking for a job, and what I found more was my purpose. Um, Give you a good example of that was I shared a video of my son dancing to Bruno Mars, because earlier I told you guys about a kidney surgery that he had. So a lady reaches out to me saying, "Oh my God, he had kidney surgery. You were depressed and a struggling mom." They're like, "Yep." And I was married, but I felt single, going through that period and having to work full time, leave my job to go tend to my son, or he's bleeding through his penis, and having to get an hour to get home to take care of him, take him to the ER. I'd be there half the night, then go back to work in the morning. It was a lot of that for 3 years straight. Um, and I shared that in that story, and it got me my first speaking engagement in Toronto, Canada. And I never dreamed of speaking that type of story to anyone. The lady reached out, and I was like, I go to speaking engagement, I don't give them. She's like, no, I think you need to tell that story. So I did. It put me on another path of me realizing that I had a voice beyond just um, being an advocate for mental health and being a therapist, but really letting people understand what it is to go through emotional pain and get through to the other side of that. From there, I started uh, getting messages for a booking coach. So I ended up getting a book coach, which is why that story of my dad came through, because in summer 2018 is when I decided to get on LinkedIn more. In that summer, I had wrote 3 books by audio, 600 transcriptions, didn't publish them yet. But that all came out of that journey of just sharing more, talking about my own healing process, what I have been through, not knowing that I was also healing and making connections while actually doing these daily journals. And then I put them together at the end of summer and realized that I had more things to share than I thought. And then I just kept going. 2 years later, I am now getting ready to publish a book. I'm now getting ready to build a practice virtually for for therapy. I'm also getting ready to launch a YouTube channel for the cooking therapist. So people are waiting for that. And these are things I never thought I would do. I thought I was going to be, in a boring traditional uh, four wall office doing therapy outpatient. That was my dream at the time. And now I've realized that my voice can be so much more to people than just doing that. And that the pandemic has been a blessing because it's actually opened my eyes to be able to reach people in a way that I didn't do before. When I started doing Facebook and radio posts, that's when I realized like there's something going on here and I want to keep talking about various pieces of my story. A lady reached out and she's like, man, you're really passionate about, telling stories and telling your own and kind of throwing yourself on the chopping block. And I was like, well, I don't have a problem doing that because when I have done it, those have been the most powerful pieces that I've seen clients make the most progress is when they're able to know that I'm human just like them, beyond all the education, everything else that I have. So I don't know if I'm missing anything else to that, but
No, I love it. I really, really love it because oftentimes we could tell you the terrible stuff. I could tell you my sob and all of the terrible things, and oftentimes we don't get to hear about the wins and the silver linings, and um, either because people let themselves get swallowed up in all of the bad and all of the trauma, and so
mm,
they don't have many wins, or they
mm,
think they downplay them, because we don't think we're worthy, so I wanted you to
imposter
share.
syndrome. Yeah.
Yes,
Yep.
so I wanted you to share that, through all of that you have had such tremendous success. I mean, um I have some questions from the group, but if you're not connected with Shara on LinkedIn, definitely connect with Shara on LinkedIn. She she says she posted about going on public assistance. At the time she posted, she had like 30,000 followers, 30,000 connections on
Hmm.
LinkedIn. Okay. So there's a lot that you could say about that. And one of the things I love about it is,
Yeah, I thought about taking that post down. People were
no,
like,
leave that there.
when I post, yeah, and I'm glad I didn't. I don't think you actually reached out to me after that when I
Mm,
posted my pandemic story because someone reached out, was like, oh man, you got a job and everything, you must be doing really well, and I was like, no, I am broke. I I just applied for food assistance and my whole world is turned upside down of what I thought I was going to be, after the new year.
yeah.
So I put up, I'm on food assistance, all these things going on. I had to go to my neighbor's house to apply for food assistance and get insurance to find a therapist. And that's even hard. I've been doing therapy for 15 years. So for me to have some trouble navigating that system was actually pretty hard. It was always hard for me to reach out for help. But I don't think if I didn't advocate for myself, I probably wouldn't be talking to you right now. To get that help, I
Yeah.
was like, I need to be on medicine for my anxiety,
Mhm.
for my ADHD. I need to get through this professional period of my life. Or like, I don't have to take the medicine forever, but I need something to get me through because I couldn't sleep. I wouldn't even come out my house. I was like, I didn't, I lived in a neighborhood where you got exploding ATMs going on and you
Mhm.
don't know if it's shooting or firecrackers. It was a lot. And riots, the whole world's just turning upside down. And I was just in the cubbyhole. Me and my son, most of the time when I wasn't doing homework with him, we were playing video games because that was my escape for me. It was a pastime as a child to play video games.
Mhm.
So for 3 months straight, I did nothing but play this game called Animal Crossing with my son. That was the thing. That's all we did, and it just helped me disconnect. I needed to disconnect from reality for a little bit, and to realize that that's okay.
Yeah.
We sometimes we have to in order for us to, get back together in some peace.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it was definitely a time for me. I still, to some extent, feel like it's a dream to even get through all those things. Like, man, I really pushed through. I didn't know how things were going to turn out. I didn't know if I was going to pass this exam that I had worked, put all these student loans and money in it. People were flying past me. 2 years getting their licensure done. It took me 10 years, mostly because of all those things I went through. But because I went through all of those things, it made me stronger. I felt it made me more aware, that life doesn't fit into some color coded organizational book that I used to love
Yeah.
doing.
Mm-hmm.
That it doesn't work that way. And sometimes you have to go through those nasty parts in order to get to the good ones. And now I'm in a beautiful relationship. I'm about to get married to my best friend who I've known for 20 years. And he has been basically, if it wasn't for him, I don't know where I would be. Honestly, he's raised my son since he was 3 months old. Mind you, I was still married. My husband kind of had like disowned and detached from parenthood, everything, and left me to take care of this baby while I'm trying to put together the pieces of whatever life or shade of a life that I had. Mind you, I almost gave up Jada for adoption because of it. And a woman that lost her firstborn, and then she has this child that's only 6 months at the no, she was 6 weeks at the time. Went to the child welfare office and said, "Here, I can't be a good mother to him." I'm getting a little teary because I remember that like it was yesterday. And this little boy, he looked up at me, and I couldn't do it. I was like, we're going to have to find our way. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I got to make this work. And there were days where I would just cry or drink my pain away. My family, that's all we do. We drink. We drink whatever. That's what we did. And it took me a while to get past that pain, to really process it. But looking back, I wouldn't take not one thing back, even the loss of my daughter, because without those things, I don't know if I would be in the place that I am now.
Wow. Yeah. So what I want, I'm going to give you some of the questions. I'm going to give you the questions, but guys, what I want you to, you could take what you take away from what Shara just said, but one of the things I want to highlight in that is we talk about networking and making connections with people on LinkedIn, and we follow the hottest influencer, and, we follow the people who have the, the most followers or connections, and we think that they live a life that we don't live, right? We think they're better than us. We think that they have reached these heights that we have not reached. And sometimes we think that we can't approach them because of that, right? Or, we think we can't go in their inbox and say, oh, they would never recognize me. And here Shara is saying, yeah, I had 35 plus, thousand followers or connections. I'm going to say connections because Shara, she's very deliberate and purposeful about building community with the people that she's connected with. And they may have people, like she says, the person says, oh, you have a good job. And she's like, no, I'm collecting food stamps, public assistance right now. So one of the things I want you guys to take away from that is we can't make these assumptions about people. Go ahead and connect. Go ahead and get to know people. Go ahead and be yourself. You guys know I don't like this authentic word. I hate that word. It's like the buzzword. Go and be you. Go ahead and be you. Go and be you. And the more that you are you, the more you're going to attract people who will support you. You're going to attract as Shara did, she attracted all of these opportunities, right? So be you, all of you. I'm going to leave that at that. I am going to ask Shara some of the questions we have here, not some. So let me see. The first I have is, what kept you motivated in the midst of all the pain you were experiencing?
What kept me? Wow. It was, I would have to say, it was my son, and it changed. That motivation actually changed over various parts of my story, depending on what part you're talking about. If we're talking about, um, during the pandemic, what kept me motivated? I actually lost motivation at some point. I did. I just kind of gave up, and I said, I can't function. You know, when you have anxiety and you're looking at the outside world just falling apart around you, sometimes you fall into that. And I was basically falling into a dark hole. And it did take me some time to get out of it. Most of that, I would have to say, was part because I did get on some medicine to help with that anxiety. I did start taking care of myself better, but it was like little by little bit. Okay, let me drink more water. Let me eat more than once a day. Let me go to a neurologist to find out if there's something going on in my head that I don't know. To find out all of that was all somatic. Nothing's wrong with my brain, no MRI, nothing. But to tell you, I have to say, my son was one, and two, I felt like I had worked too hard. I worked way too hard to stop where I was. But I'm telling you all that now. But at the time, I can't say that it wasn't a fight, because it was. It was a fight between me giving up and that other part of me that was saying, you work too hard and you should keep going. There are times that I just shut that down and said, whatever, I'm just going to get this bottle of wine right here and just not look at this news right now. I had to be real, because that motivation fluctuated on how I felt. Eventually, around, I would say it wasn't until September that I actually felt better, well enough to get refocused on why I went into contract in the first place. And that was just to take a break from therapy and try to figure out what we're going to be the next move for my career. That was before all the pandemic stuff. After that, it was, I'm just trying to survive. That was my motivation. I'm just trying to survive, period. So I don't know if that answered your question, but that's what I got.
Well, some of my story that definitely resonates with me and where I was about a year ago today. Let's see. How did you learn to trust again?
Talking about that relationship. Woo! Oh man. So trust. Man, if it was a struggle. If my fiance was here, he like snuck out the room. It was hard.
Oh, he could come on back.
He was like, I'm out. She talking about trust, because he was my emotional punching bag. We got into a relationship right after my divorce, and I was scared because he's my best friend. He's known me since I was 14 years old. And that's the only relationship I have that someone knows me from that time now. And I didn't want to lose that. But I was still in love with him. He was still in love with me, and he loved my son. So I was like, I'm going to give this a shot. I'm going to try to take a chance. But it was work. It wasn't like, oh, we love each other, it's going to work. No. I was evil. I was mean to her. It took a lot of therapy, and also looking at myself of, in order to get all this toxicity out, I got to look at all the ugly that's within me. It has to start with me. A lot of it was me triggering from my family pathology, my upbringing of unhealthy relationships, and feeling like I deserved that. A lot of my own self-esteem issues that I had. So learning to trust wasn't easy. It took a long couple of years for me to get to a place of wanting to trust someone with my heart again. And I'm glad I did now. But back then, even though we were in a relationship, it was still kind of 1 foot in and 1 foot like I should run. So it took a while, but also with a lot of therapy, a lot of support from him, with him understanding that I had a scarred soul. He knew what he got into a relationship with. He knew I was carrying a lot of emotional baggage. I didn't trust him right away either, even though he was showing me everything that I needed. My past was saying, don't do it. So it was a lot of me unpacking a lot of that over time, and realizing what the triggers were. It wasn't him that I didn't trust. I didn't trust myself. Because I had put myself out there so many times and got hurt, not realizing that some of the stuff that I was attracting was stuff that was in here.
Putting it out,
So I don't know if that answered it, but hopefully it gave you some perspective.
I don't have any more questions, but I'm gonna drop some of these these comments.
What they to pivot and make that lemonade. Girl, I'm swimming in it now.
Right?
Swimming in it now.
I love it. So I usually ask my questions, and I'm not going to ask my first question about marginalization. Um, but I am going to ask my other two questions. And sorry, I just need to make sure we were plugged in before I cut us off, before this computer shuts down on us. I am going to ask my other two questions, which, but I also want to say, Shara, I am so happy to hear you say that you're working in as an advocate, right? Because you said something that I said to my therapist plenty times in the past 2 years. Uh, I was navigating through a system that, whether it was workers' comp, disability, I can do those things. Even in the midst of me having my issues, I was able to advocate for myself. One, because um, my aptitude, right? Like, so I was able to read these policies and the fine print that, and I was able to do a lot of footwork and calling people and saying, yeah, I might be depressed, but no, it says I'm entitled to this. I paid for this insurance. I want this, right? And I often said to my therapist, well, what of the person who can't do this, right? What of the person who maybe you're so disabled they can't speak up for themselves? So I really appreciate that you are working as an advocate as well. And so I understand you when you say like navigating through on yourself was difficult, and you're a care, yeah, it was crazy. I mean, the amount of paperwork and all of this. And I'm like, wait a minute, if someone is really, how can they do this if they're physically unable, And then I have family members who were able to do things for me, like scan documents and get stuff in. And so thank you for being an advocate. Yes,
Yeah, I
thank
kind
you.
of look at it as both. Just advocate. I always tell, even on Clubhouse, I always say I'm an advocate before I'm a therapist first, because when I, I came into mental health because I wanted to help people, but most of that was me trying to really understand myself. So when I hear people talk about their stories, especially in one of the mental health groups on Clubhouse, I'm always speaking to them from my heart place before I'm thinking of from here first.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I definitely appreciate that. So I have two questions, and then guys, if you have anything else, you can drop it here. But my first question is, if you can go back to any point, it could be last year, this time, 3 months ago, or much earlier, knowing everything that you know now, what would you tell that younger Shara?
Well, if this was 10 years ago, I would have told her that, um, having this degree is is only a tiny pebble in the pond. um, if this was me during the pandemic, I probably would have said, uh, "You're going to be okay. Um, this you just got to ride out the storm. It's a storm.
Yeah,
It's not
they
going to
always
last. No bad time does, no good time does. It's just going to be something that passes, and you're just going to be along for the ride, even though you don't know what's coming. But it's not going to be here forever." That's what I
yeah.
probably would have said, because that's what I felt. When you're in that dark place, you feel like it's never going to end.
End. It's the end. It is the end, right? So
Yes.
that is your end, and you're just
Yeah.
stuck in it. And yeah, I've
Mhm.
been, yeah. Um, well, February 17th, you could hear mine.
I could hear it in your voice when I said that.
Yeah.
But that's probably, that's what I keep going to. That it's going to be okay, and that life is going to happen. I used to really, I was a very type A, very
Mm,
personalized, color coded poster. Not as
yeah.
much anymore. Kids kind of throw that out the window now, but but I'm still organized to a degree, but not where I was. I used to have my life like scheduled into the T, color coded, pretty.
Mm, mm,
I didn't want anything messing up that schedule. And I thought, how scared was I?
mm, mm,
At 18, 19 years old, coming into college, I was very scared because I thought I had something to prove. I was going to an
yeah.
all white university at the time. And coming from poor school district, you know, I didn't know what it was going to come of it. I still graduated at the top of my class with honors.
Yeah.
And the only Black girl on stage. No one clapped for me, by the way. Nope. Because at the time I was a student trustee. So there's always one student trustee on the board that comes out with the university president. And I came up, got my diploma first before anybody else did. And it really taught me a lesson about, you know, systemic racism, all of that. I didn't care. Like, I heard this, whatever. And I sat down. But that being going to an all-white institution definitely taught me a lot about it prepared me more for the world.
For the world.
More than anything. Then going to HBCU, love Howard University, that prepared me for another journey in itself. I needed to see people that looked like me getting educated and succeeding, because I came from an environment where it was very much the opposite. People stayed in the inner city neighborhoods. They didn't leave. They only saw the block. That was it. And I put myself in situations where it would be uncomfortable, but I knew I wanted to grow. I just didn't know what direction I was going in. But yeah, I know I kind of went off into a whole different tangent.
You do what you feel. Yeah.
Alcohol. Did I ever seek treatment? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, I did. I did seek treatment for the alcohol use, and it was very temporary. I didn't do like a outpatient program, but I worked with it in terms of the use. It's funny because I can't drink a bottle of wine or anything like that anymore. At the time, the whole point of me drinking, it was a maladaptive, we call it in therapy, maladaptive coping skill, because I was trying to drown something. Now I only drink like a glass or two. I can't, I would chug whole bottles of wine. It'd be gone. Wouldn't stay in my fridge or nothing. It would go. Because that in my family, that type of dysfunctional pattern of alcoholism, that's how we cope with things. And it was a learned behavior that I knew I had to stop. I knew that intellectually, but at the time I didn't care. I just wanted something to numb. But when I realized what it was and really went to the hardcore truth of why I was using it, the use stopped.
Yeah, look at that. Thank you, Shara. So this is my final question. Considering everything you spoke about today, and you take the title of this presentation, My Pandemic Story, if we had one takeaway for today, what would you want us to walk away with? If we could only walk away with one thing, what would you want that to be?
One thing. Healing is a process.
I love it. I love it. It sure is. Yeah,
that would be my takeaway. There are so many pathological wounds that I had growing, taking all that, running from it, because I used going to college, and I never came back to my parents' home for a good 10 years. Because I wanted to get my education. I was like, oh, I'll get educated or whatever. But I was also running from a dysfunctional family household, and an abusive one at that. But yet not healing those wounds, or not even realizing I had them until I entered those type of relationships that brought them out.
Wow. I am so I'm so happy or glad that you actually you pursued a discipline that could give you the knowledge to better deal with this, right? To better understand, not deal with, better understand, right? So it's not just you're really coming to it able to kind of dissect in a better, right? Just as you said, like that's a maladaptive behavior. I wouldn't know that, right? You self-medicating over there, like that's what I would say. So I love that you pursued a discipline that could not only lead to your own healing, but the healing of so many others.
I didn't know that at the time, though. I was like, I'm going to be a lawyer. And then from being a lawyer to a psychologist to a social worker. So it wasn't a natural progression. I originally wanted to be a lawyer. I was like, this costs too much money. There's too many books. I mean, therapy was still more books. But when I entered social work, when I thought that it was just going to be, they'd be like, oh, you going to be taking away kids? I'm like, no, Social work is so much.
It's
I'm
so
like,
much
what about?
more to social
Yeah,
work.
but that was my response to my advisor. He's like, "You're
Mhm.
switching majors." I'm like, "I'm going." It's like social work. Social work, you'll get your master's. You can
Mhm.
practice therapy a lot faster if you go that
Yeah.
route. And I was like, "Oh, okay." So I went that route, and never looked back. But when I learned as I was going in college, starting to put together these big, what we call genome maps, where you're looking at dysfunctional relationships, you're looking at patterns. They're making you look
Mhm.
at your own history to understand it, and
Yeah.
that was also the beginning of that. I want to say awakening, enlightening process for me to understand
Mhm.
what I was carrying, what I was repeating,
Yeah.
even though I repeated some of it.
Mhm. Yeah. I mean,
So,
yeah.
yeah.
I love it. You're welcome to come back here when you write these books. Also, you can do a cooking. We can stream your cooking show in here too. Guys, if you love food like I do, and you follow Shara on LinkedIn, every now and again, she is cooking, but more now than again. She is cooking up some good stuff. I mean, she fried a turkey. I've never tasted fried turkey. She made some chicken pot pies. Oh my goodness. She's just out there cooking. I mean, like cooking real food, like a Sunday dinner on a Tuesday. She does that. That's what she does for her family. And I can't wait until she has her show. I hope you put together some quick meals, some easy meals for people like me.
Yeah, I do. I've actually started thinking about that's what they were like. What's 20 minute? Kind of like the Rachel Way 20 minute meals, doing freezer meals. I've done those
Okay.
earlier on because I got 3 kids, and if I'm talking
Yeah.
about keep it with a cooking show and trying to write a book and then run a practice, I need freezer meals. I do a lot of those too.
Yes, we need that.
Make it and freeze it.
Yes, as Melody says, I like to eat. I'm ready to see the show. Yes.
Oh, Melody.
Uh-huh. So I don't know. I'm not gonna put you on the spot about your launch date, but definitely
No,
let us know.
launch date. I'm looking at the first 2 weeks in February.
Okay, really,
Just
really
because
soon.
I'm in Delaware at a vacation now, so I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to be taping buttermilk fried chicken and beef and
Oh,
broccoli pressure cooker tomorrow. So
oh,
I'll do that, and that'll be the first things that I edit and will be up. So I will let
okay.
everybody know as
We're
soon as I
ready.
get
Yes.
those two up. Those are my first two up.
All right. I
I just
love
got to
it.
learn all the editing stuff. I was like, I am over. I don't know how this works, so I
Oh,
have to
you'll
learn
learn
that.
it.
Yeah.
I haven't, I mean, I do, but it takes me forever to do it. And people keep saying if I do more, I'll be better. But I throw it up there anyway. Now I will cut off the beginning of this. But it's streaming. I don't have to. It's out there and it's already out there now. So like if I
Mm.
was gonna upload this one, I would have cut off the beginning, but hey, we're good. Uh yeah, it's all right. People they know we're regular folk. But yeah, I appreciate you for coming out here, Shara. You're
No
welcome to come back
problem.
anytime and we'll stay connected.
Yeah, we definitely will. Thank you for having me on. I was just like having butterflies again about doing this. Every time I do any type of speaking, it's always that, how's this going to turn out? And
Mhm.
so I start talking, I was fine.
Yeah. Oh, well, I'm
So I
glad.
was
I'm
able to
glad
tell.
that you
Yeah, I
worked
hope
through
everyone
that.
got a lot of value of what they could because I kind of got away from my pandemic story a little bit because people were like, what's this licensure thing? And I wanted to explain what happened that 10 years for them to
Mhm.
understand how
Yeah.
big of an obstacle it was and why I
Mhm.
was pushing so hard for it during the pandemic.
Oh, I understand that. I have so many friends, being a New Yorker who went to city, like New York CUNY, City University of New York. I have so many friends that I met in college who it took them 8 years to finish a 4-year degree. It took them 10 years. It took them 12 years. Why? Because they had real life going on. And
Mm.
so, because they had real life going on, they worked full time and they took a Saturday course. They took 2 Saturday classes back to back this semester. And then they didn't go for another semester, but they kept going and kept going and kept going. So, I clearly understand striving for something and it not happening for a long time and watching others get it. Please, my mom, I used to be in community college with my mother when I was like 5 years old, sitting in classes with her. She got her first degree when I was 23. All right. So, and she was one of those, like, I'm raising my family. And so I could take I could go this year, but then I can't go back for 2 more years or whatever the case may be. But, she got her first degree and now she has many degrees, but I was an adult by that time. She didn't have that level of responsibility. So I understand, but it's not easy. Many people don't understand that because they come from a world and a culture where people are afforded the opportunity to go to school with nothing
Yeah, I can't even tell you
to have to
because
think
there's
about.
so much of that systemic racism and systemic. There are things in place. Someone asked me, I'll never forget, when I worked at my last agency, and I'm the only Black therapist there. I had a patient say, "Why aren't there more people that look like you and me doing the work that you're doing?" I said there are a lot of things, a lot of barriers that are in place for a reason that keep us where we are. That can keep us where we are. Doesn't mean they do, but they can. And I've had to push like hell to get past those barriers in order for me to get to a place where I can offer that type of value, to have that type of legal authority within my profession. It's not many of us, unfortunately.
I appreciate you for being there, Shara. I'm going to let you go ahead back to your family and your vacation house. Look at that. She's at her vacation house. And last time she was talking about she was
not my money.
getting public assistance. And now she's well enough to be at her vacation house. So guys, take some motivation and encouragement. I know it's not yours. You're renting it, but still. I mean, I know.
Beyonce's vacation house. Ain't mine. Well, it's mine. I guess it's mine then.
Hey, so they got that going on.
Get my last little New Year kind of thing before I start getting busy. I'm like, I need this. We didn't really have besides the engagement, which was Christmas, and then New Year's hit, and we really didn't have a break. I was like, well, before we both get busy with all these wedding planning and me trying to work and build a business, I think we should just do a week in a quarantine somewhere. That's what we decided to do.
Yeah.
Somebody saw Melly.
Now I have to go and see that. What's the story? Is it still there, right?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I had did a video with my son earlier. We were doing a little nature walk. There's like a pond outside. And I posted it on my Instagram about taking time to get outside of your environment and how I'm trying to expose my son to as much as I can, like my parents did, even though they couldn't go far because they didn't have the financial means. They would try to get me to go to Jersey or to the beach or wherever, just to get me outside of Philadelphia, outside of West Philly, inner city, row house, block, dog poop everywhere type of situation. So I'm real talk. So I want to expose my son to as much as I can, just as I had to expose myself to more in order for me to get the schooling experiences that I needed that would propel me forward. I want to make sure that I cultivate that in him early.
Yeah. So. I love it. Well, enjoy, and I can't wait for this buttermilk chicken, although it's not coming today, but I can't wait until it's edited.
Yeah, I'm gonna I gotta pull it out tonight out the fridge so I can marinate it in the buttermilk, fresh crushed rosemary and lemon, pepper, and paprika, smoked paprika.
Oh,
so that's actually paprika. My mom called me she said that's the marry me chicken because the last time I made it was for my ex-husband and he actually gave me a ring the next day. So she's like, don't make that chicken again unless you get married. I was like, well, I got the ring now, so I ain't
you better make it again. Yeah, let's seal the deal. Make it again. Seal the deal. Right, Shara. Thank you. I appreciate you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right, then enjoy your vacation and your family.
Will do. Bye.
All right, guys, we're gone.